You get why your attendance isn't possible, right? My mother remarked, her tone as nonchalant as if we were talking about the day's forecast. Celine's dream wedding is not about you, Isabel. It's meant for her perfect day, and honestly, having you there would just complicate matters. I found myself seated on the floral-patterned couch in my parents' living room in Charleston, South Carolina, fixed on her impeccably groomed hands resting in her lap. The afternoon sun streamed through the curtains, creating gentle shadows on her face, yet her words hit hard with no hint of gentleness. I'm Isabel, 27 years old, working as a freelance photographer with a focus on architecture and travel. I barely managed to cover the rent of my tiny studio and maintain my camera gear on my shaky income. For years, I told myself that being the overlooked daughter was just how my family operated. Celine, 3 years my junior, had always been the shining star. She was more beautiful, charismatic, and successful in my parents' eyes. Right out of college, she snagged a lucrative position in a marketing firm, married a wealthy investment banker named Gregory, and now lived in a stunning townhouse my mother couldn't stop boasting about. But this situation felt different. It wasn't merely being forgotten during the holidays or having my birthday overshadowed by Celine's latest triumph. This was an intentional exclusion from what my mother repeatedly called the event of the decade. Complicated how? I queried, managing to keep my voice calm, despite the slight tremor in my hands. My mother let out a sigh, as if my question was exhausting her. Celine's invited 300 guests. Everyone significant will be there. The venue itself costs $75,000. She'll be donning a custom Vera Wang gown. Photographers from 2 bridal magazines will cover it. This isn't just a backyard party, Isabel. It's a statement, and your presence would jeopardize that. You know how you are, she said, striking me harder than anything else. You never truly fit in. You're always in those jeans and that old camera bag, while Celine's friends are polished and composed. You'd feel out of place anyway. I wanted to contest that. I wanted to assert that I owned elegant dresses, that I could present myself well when necessary, that being a photographer didn't make me a social reject. Yet, the reality was that this was less about my appearance and more about hierarchy, about keeping me in my designated spot. Does Celine know you're saying this to me? I pressed. My mother's face flickered momentarily. We discussed it as a family. Your father is on board, it's for the best. And honestly, Isabel, you should feel relieved. $750,000 for a wedding? That's a kind of stress you wouldn't want to deal with. $750,000. The figure was outrageous. It surpassed what I had made in 5 years combined, all for a single day I wouldn't even be allowed to witness because of the potential to tarnish its perfection. I rose slowly, grabbing my camera bag from beside the couch. My mother regarded me with that same calm demeanor, as if she were simply sharing reasonable information. I get it, I murmured softly. She seemed almost relieved. I knew you would. You've always been so rational about these situations. Rational. That was her way of saying compliant. Of accepting the meager affection crumbs the family tossed my way. I walked toward the door, the sound of my boots gently echoing on the hardwood. Just before I reached it, I spun around. When is it? The wedding? June 15th. But Isabel, I really think it's better if— I just wanted to check my calendar, I interrupted, leaving before she could add another word. As I drove away from their immaculate colonial home, I felt an internal shift. It wasn't just anger, not precisely. It was a cold clarity about my position in this family and my worth to them. June 15th was 3 months off, a span in which they would prepare for Celine's flawless day while I was meant to fade into the background. To deliberately vanish so nobody would have to justify my absence. I pulled into a coffee shop parking area, sat in my car for a while, and stared at my phone. Then, I opened my banking app. $4,300. Not a fortune, but mine, earned through my hard work and talent. An idea began to form, something daring and audacious, a stark departure from the sensible, obedient Isabel my mother anticipated. If they didn't want me at Celine's ideal wedding, that was okay. But it didn't mean I had to spend that day alone in my apartment, scrolling through social media images of an event I was barred from. I opened my laptop and started researching. Over the next few weeks, the idea developed, consuming my thoughts during lulls between photography gigs. Visiting Paris had always been a dream of mine. I had a dream tucked deep in my mind, something that always felt just out of reach for someone struggling with bills. But a glance at my savings and a bit of math showed me it was within my grasp. Just barely, yet achievable. Growing up, Celine and I were close during a blissful, short-lived period, perhaps 4 or 5 years of normalcy before the favoritism became glaringly obvious. I fondly remembered our blanket fort adventures and whispering secrets long past bedtime. Yet, as we hit middle school, everything changed. Celine realized she could manipulate our family dynamics, getting our parents to favor her version of the truth and wrap her in the cloak of victimhood to get what she wanted. The first big event occurred when I was 15 and she was 12. After saving my babysitting earnings to buy a professional camera, a dream of mine before every other distraction, Celine threw a fit because I had received something valuable while she had received nothing. Within a week, my parents bought her a laptop that cost double what I had spent on my camera. A painful pattern was established. In college, while I juggled part-time jobs to make up for what little my scholarship covered, Celine cruised into her 18th birthday with a shiny new car. Our parents claimed their contributions to my education sufficed, ignoring the fact they barely covered the cost of textbooks. Upon graduating, as I struggled to build my photography career, Celine snagged a marketing role that instantly paid her more than I could ever imagine. Their pride in her success screamed from the rooftops. Their darling youngest daughter had finally proven herself. As for me, I felt utterly invisible, only noticed when they needed me to photograph family gatherings for free or to house sit while they took trips. I probably should have been furious, and I was, hidden beneath layers of other emotions. But deep down, I was exhausted. Exhausted from longing for them to recognize my value, weary of diminishing myself so Celine could glow brighter. Then came that fateful day when my mother made her announcement in the living room, followed by an invitation to the wedding that arrived 2 weeks later. It was addressed to my parents, detailing who from the family was invited, and glaringly omitted my name. Everyone was included, my parents, both sets of grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone but me. This was no accidental oversight, it was a sharp declaration of my worth in this family. Later that evening, I confided in my best friend Kara, whom I met 5 years ago at a photography workshop. She'd always understood the complicated dynamics of my family without passing judgment. "They didn't invite you?" Kara exclaimed in disbelief. "To your sister's own wedding?" Apparently, I'm viewed as a distraction on her perfect day. Unbelievable. "What are you planning?" I took a deep breath. "I'm considering a trip to Paris during her wedding weekend." A pause echoed on the line. "Tell me everything." I shared my research about a Parisian photographer known for high-end bridal style shoots tailored for travelers. Custom gown, professional hair and makeup, sunrise at the Eiffel Tower, all tempting, albeit costly, yet doable if I managed my spending. "You want to have your own wedding shoot minus the wedding?" she asked. "Absolutely. If I'm being excluded from family events, it's high time I create my own unforgettable memories. Plus, as a photographer, I understand the significance of a stunning image." Kara's laughter filled the air. "I adore this. When do we leave?" "We? You really think I'd let you go on this adventure alone? I've got vacation days accrued. Let me check flight options." That conversation was a turning point. Suddenly, it felt less like a mere fantasy aimed at escaping the painful reality of my exclusion and more like a concrete plan with a friend who truly believed in me. In the following month, I accepted every photography gig I could, from corporate headshots and real estate photos to family portraits. My savings grew steadily. I delved into researching Paris neighborhoods, exploring hotel options, and found an amazing photographer named Isabel who specialized in precisely the kind of shoot I envisioned. When I reached out to her, I shared my ideas and received a wonderfully enthusiastic response. She even had a friend who designed dresses tailored to my measurements. She pinpointed gorgeous locations and shared my vision completely. The dress would run $1,500, and the photography package was $2,000. Traveling expenses for Kara and me were about $3,000 combined, plus another $300 for hair and makeup. The total was more than I had ever spent on myself in one go. Yet, every time doubt crept in, I thought of that invitation glaringly missing my name, and my mother's cynical dismissal, her unwavering expectation that I would passively accept being erased from this significant family celebration. 3 weeks prior to Celine's wedding, I finalized all the arrangements. Flights, accommodation, photo sessions, and sent my dress measurements to the designer. It was really happening. I chose not to mention any of this to my family. They never asked about my plans for that weekend. They probably assumed I'd be having a quiet time at home, maybe catching a flick or working on my portfolio, definitely not stirring things up. But I confided in Kara as we made our plans. Her excitement almost matched my own as she delved into researching Parisian cafes and laid out our activities beyond just the photo shoot. This trip evolved into something so much more than just a reaction to being sidelined. It became a powerful way to reclaim my own story. One evening in late May, my phone buzzed and lit up with a message from Celine, the first text I'd received from her since the wedding arrangements kicked off. "Mom said you understood about the wedding. I appreciate your maturity regarding it. It's nothing personal." Nothing personal? As if cutting out your only sibling from such a monumental day was merely a practical choice, like opting for salmon over chicken for dinner. I stared at her message for quite a while before I decided to reply. "I hope you have a beautiful day." I truly meant it in a way. I hoped her extravagant celebration fulfilled every one of her wishes because I was about to gain something significant too. As the trip drew closer, my anxiety surged. I began questioning everything. Was I being childish? Was this merely a costly act of revenge that would leave me broke and empty? What if no one cared about my photos from Paris? But then, my mother called, dispelling those doubts. "Celine is so stressed," she said, jumping straight into the topic. "The final alterations on her dress aren't quite right, and the florist had to swap 2 types of roses. Can you believe it? All that planning, and now these small crises. That must be frustrating," I chimed in. "But she's managing it well. She's such a pro. Gregory's mom is throwing a luncheon tomorrow for the wedding party and immediate family. It should be lovely," she continued. Immediate family, a group that, apparently, I no longer considered myself part of. "I'm sure it will be nice," I replied. My mother then asked, "Are you working that weekend, the weekend of the wedding?" Her tone made me feel like she genuinely wished I would be busy, like I'd have some solid excuse for skipping out that would somehow soften the harshness of the situation. "I have plans," I responded confidently. "Oh, great. I'm glad you'll have something to keep you occupied," she said. Once we hung up, I grabbed my suitcase and started to pack. Carol would be arriving 2 days before our departure for Paris, ready to stay with me so we could fly together. The designer had sent over confirmation images of the finished gown. It was stunning. An elegant ivory masterpiece adorned with delicate beading on the bodice, made to swirl beautifully in photography. It was everything I had imagined and more. When Kara arrived, we spent the night meticulously discussing every aspect of the trip. She even brought along accessories, a lovely veil she discovered in a vintage shop and a bouquet preservation kit so we could dry the flowers afterward if I wanted. "This is going to be amazing," she exclaimed, scrolling through Isabel's stunning portfolio on her tablet. "Look at these shots. You're going to look like you stepped right out of a magazine." I gazed at the breathtaking images of incredible women draped in beautiful gowns at iconic locations of Paris. In just 2 days, that would be me. The thought filled me with excitement as well as fear. Do you think I'm being vengeful? I asked. Kara paused, placed the tablet down, and looked at me earnestly. I think you're just being human. They excluded you from a significant family event and expected you to fade away silently. You're not intruding on the wedding or aiming to sabotage anything. You're simply seeking joy in your life. That's not vindictive, it's about survival. On Thursday evening, we flew out, reaching Paris by early Friday morning. Despite the exhaustion from the overnight journey, I felt an electric surge of anticipation. The city was everything I envisioned, charming, historic, and bursting with potential. We settled into a quaint boutique hotel in the 7th arrondissement, conveniently close to the Eiffel Tower. After checking in and taking a short nap, we met Isabel at her studio. She was so welcoming, and her English was remarkable despite her lovely accent. The dress arrived yesterday, she said, guiding us to a back room where it elegantly hung on a mannequin. You're going to love it. It was even more stunning in person than in the pictures. The ivory fabric shimmered beautifully in the light, and the delicate beading was just right, not too much at all. I had asked for something bridal yet elegant enough to wear to other fancy events. And she had absolutely nailed it. We'll kick off the shoot at 5:30 tomorrow morning, Isabel explained. The sunrise light will be perfect, and we'll avoid the tourist crowds. Hair and makeup kicks off at 4 a.m. I know that sounds super early, but believe me, the outcome will absolutely be worth it. That evening, Kara and I strolled through Paris, stopping for dinner at a quaint cafe and meandering along the Seine as the sun dipped below the horizon. I tried to push aside thoughts of what was happening back in Charleston. By now, wedding guests were arriving, and Celine was likely indulging in a spa day or some pre-wedding gathering. My parents must have been thriving, proudly playing the host role. Meanwhile, I was here in Paris about to embark on creating something uniquely mine. We decided to turn in early, setting a bunch of alarms. At 3:30 a.m., we groggily got out of bed and prepped ourselves. The hair and makeup artist arrived at our hotel, transforming my typically casual look into an exquisitely ethereal beauty. She added tiny flowers to my updo and gave me a naturally polished makeup style. By 5 a.m., draped in the ivory gown, I felt like a completely new person. Kara was snapping selfies non-stop, beaming from ear to ear. You look like a princess, she exclaimed. Celine's going to be blown away when she sees these. If she sees them, I corrected her. I haven't made up my mind about the photos yet. That was partially true. I had thoughts swirling in my head, but nothing felt solid. A part of me craved to share those images publicly as a way to assert my existence and my ability to create beauty without needing their approval. Yet, another side of me wanted to keep them intimate, a private rebellion that only I would fully grasp. Isabel picked us up in her car, and we made our way to the Trocadero Gardens. The dawn was just starting to light up the sky with a soft pink glow. The Eiffel Tower loomed before us, majestic and iconic. Perfect, Isabel murmured, already scoping out the best angles and lighting. For the next 2 hours, we wandered through the gardens and nearby areas. Isabel expertly guided me, turning this way, lifting my dress, gazing at the tower, strolling along the paths. Kara was a fantastic help, managing the veil and ensuring my dress flowed beautifully. It was pure magic, there's no other word to describe it. As the sun rose and bathed everything in golden light, I forgot about being sidelined from Celine's wedding. I forgot about being the overlooked daughter. In that instant, I was solely Isabel, positioned in one of the most breathtaking cities globally, appearing just as I had always dreamed. When Isabel finally lowered her camera, she wore a beaming smile. We have something incredibly special here. I can feel it. We shifted to different spots for more shots, capturing moments near the Seine and at a picture-perfect bridge. By 8 a.m., we wrapped up, and I felt drained but incredibly exhilarated. Back at the hotel, I gently changed out of the gown and hung it where it was visible. Kara and I flopped onto our beds, utterly spent. That was surreal. Kara exclaimed. Honestly, Isabel, you just crafted a work of art. I smiled, experiencing something I hadn't felt in quite a while. Not exactly happiness, but definitely validation. Proof that I can mold my own beautiful experiences without my family's endorsement or involvement. Just then, my phone buzzed, a message from my mother, wedding day. Everything looks perfect. I didn't reply. Instead, I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, savoring a satisfaction I struggled to put into words. Tomorrow, I would see the photos. Tomorrow, I'd decide their fate. Tomorrow, everything might shift. But for now, I rested, feeling like I achieved something bold and breathtaking just for me. The rest of Saturday was spent exploring Paris, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Charleston. By now, Celine's ceremony must have started. I pictured the venue, a historic mansion or an upscale hotel ballroom lavishly decorated. 300 guests, dressed to the nines. My parents greeting everyone with beaming smiles, playing the perfect in-laws for Gregory's affluent family. And not a single person would mention me. No one would inquire about the older daughter. If they did, my parents likely had a rehearsed response ready. Oh, Isabel couldn't make it, work commitments, something vague and dismissive to silence any further inquiries. Kara noticed my distracted demeanor as we sat in a cafe in the Latin Quarter that evening. You're thinking about it, she said. Hard not to, I confessed. I can't help but wonder if anyone has even realized I'm absent. Their loss, Kara asserted confidently. Honestly, after what we did this morning, after those stunning photos we'll see tomorrow, you've already won. I wanted to hold on to her words. But there was this emptiness in my chest, a feeling that wouldn't quite dissipate. It wasn't jealousy towards Celine's wedding, not exactly. It was sorrow for the family connection I had always yearned for but never possessed. Sorrow for being the daughter who wasn't deemed worthy of inclusion. On Sunday morning, we met Isabel at her studio to sift through the photos. She had a large monitor set up, and when she displayed the first image, I gasped. It was undeniably me, yet somehow more than my usual self. The morning light cast an almost ethereal glow. The Eiffel Tower towered majestically behind me, perfectly poised in the frame. My dress cascaded like water, suspended in a moment of enchantment. My expression radiated serenity, confidence, and beauty that I had never recognized in myself before. Keep going, Kara encouraged, leaning in closer. Isabel turned the camera, snapping image after image, each one more breathtaking than the last. Some captured dramatic silhouettes set against a stormy sky, while others exuded a soft, romantic vibe with the veil dancing in the breeze. There were intimate close-ups revealing intricate dress details, as well as wide-angle shots that showcased the grand setting. These are of professional caliber, I exclaimed, my voice faltering with emotion. They could grace magazine covers. Isabel beamed at me. Absolutely. You have a natural talent in front of the lens, Isabel. Many freeze or appear staged, but you completely embraced the vision. We carefully hand-picked the best photos for final touch-ups. Isabel assured me they would be ready by Tuesday, our last full day in Paris before we caught our flight home Wednesday morning. As we left the studio, Kara linked her arm with mine. You have to share these. I know you're unsure, but they're too stunning to keep private. I don't know. I hesitated. What if it looks like I'm trying to overshadow Celine? So what if it does? Kara pushed back. She chose to exclude you from her wedding. She has no authority over how you spend your time or what you choose to share about your life. These pictures are about you, not her. Our Sunday and Monday were filled with tourist adventures, exploring museums and indulging in delicious cuisine. Yet, my thoughts kept drifting back to those images. Kara had a point, they were too gorgeous to keep hidden, and I had invested so much effort into creating them. I had saved money, meticulously planned, and taken a leap of faith. Why should I downplay my own accomplishments just to avoid overshadowing my sister? By Monday evening, I made a firm decision. When Isabel sent the finalized photos on Tuesday morning, I would share one, not to undermine Celine, but simply to celebrate something I was proud of. If my family disapproved, they should have considered that before leaving me out. Tuesday afternoon, I received the beautifully refined photos in my inbox. Thanks to Isabel's expert edits, they were even more mesmerizing, the colors vibrant, the lighting impeccable, and every detail immaculate. I dedicated an hour to deciding which image to post. Eventually, I settled on an enchanting shot captured just as the sun rose, where I stood gracefully in profile, gazing at the Eiffel Tower, my dress shimmering with golden light. The composition was flawless, radiating both romance and strength. Now, the caption, this was key. I typed, erased, and revised several drafts, striving for the right tone, neither bitter nor angry, just confident. Finally, I decided on something straightforward, no invite needed to shine brighter. I lingered over those words, realizing they had enough punch for my family to grasp the underlying sentiment, yet remained vague enough for the general audience. It was my truth, expressed with dignity rather than fury. I hit post on Instagram at 7 p.m. Paris time, which corresponded with 1 p.m. in Charleston. Celine's wedding had taken place on Saturday. By now, she would likely be basking in her honeymoon bliss, possibly sharing her own professionally taken photos. After posting, I immediately closed the app, too anxious to observe the incoming reactions. Kara and I went out for dinner, trying to distract ourselves with wine and chatter. But by the time we returned to the hotel 2 hours later, my phone was buzzing ceaselessly with notifications. The post had already generated over 2,000 likes, far surpassing anything I'd ever shared, and the comments were flooding in. This is absolutely breathtaking. Where did you get that dress? I need it. Paris goals. You look like a fairy tale princess. My heart raced as I scrolled through countless similar praises, and then I spotted messages from acquaintances, distant relatives, former classmates, and even a few professional contacts, all marveling at the photo. But not a word from my immediate family. No messages from my parents, not even Celine. Silence from those who should have cared most. It's going viral, Kara exclaimed, checking her phone. Look, it's already been shared on a wedding inspiration page, and they're dubbing it a solo bridal Paris shoot and asking if it's a new trend. I glanced at the share count. It was over 300 and climbing within the wedding photography community I followed online. Buzz was building. Someone even tagged several bridal magazines in the comments, recommending they feature the shoot. This is unreal. I murmured, astonished. It's really going viral. Kara's face lit up. You've created something impactful. This is what happens when true emotion meets professional skill. People can sense the authenticity. We stayed up late, mesmerized as the likes and shares continued to swell. By midnight Paris time, the post boasted 5,000 likes and had been shared over 1,000 times. A major wedding blog had reached out, eager to feature it, and 2 photographers wanted to know who the talented shooter was so they could credit Isabel. A gown designer reached out about the dress, yet my family still hadn't responded. That night, I went to bed with my phone buzzing non-stop from a flurry of notifications. It should have felt victorious, but I was hit with an odd sense of emptiness. I craved affirmation, a sign that I mattered, and while it was pouring in from countless strangers, the very family whose approval I longed for was silent. On Wednesday morning, as we prepared for our flight home, my post continued to gain momentum. Overnight, a prominent lifestyle website with millions of followers featured it in a piece about the rising trend of solo wedding photos on social media, showcasing my picture front and center. The numbers were phenomenal. Over 15,000 likes, nearly 5,000 shares, and comments pouring in from various languages. People were not only inquiring about how to book similar shoots but also tagging friends and sharing their own tales of exclusion from family celebrations. Unknowingly, I had tapped into something much larger than my personal feelings of hurt. It resonated with countless others who felt overlooked, dismissed, or left out. My photo wasn't just aesthetically pleasing, it symbolized reclaiming one's story when others attempt to erase you from it. As the flight home progressed, fatigue took its toll. I mostly slept, with my phone set to airplane mode to escape the persistent notifications. During our layovers, Kara kept checking her phone, updating me. "A bridal magazine wants to interview you," she shared at our transfer in New York, adding that someone from a morning show was interested in featuring a segment on solo celebration shoots. "That's insane," I exclaimed. "I'm not even qualified to comment on trends, I just wanted nice pictures." "You sparked something," Kara insisted. "Whether you intended to or not." We arrived in Charleston late Wednesday evening. My phone buzzed with missed calls from my mother and a series of texts from Celine. I didn't check them during the ride home, I was too drained to face whichever storm was brewing. Thursday morning, I awoke in my own bed to my phone ringing. It was my mother. I thought about ignoring it, but after the fourth call, I answered. "Isabel, what on earth were you thinking?" Her tone was sharp with fury. "Good morning to you, too," I replied, propping myself up. "Don't be flippant. You posted that absurd photo during Celine's wedding. Do you understand how inappropriate that was?" "I posted it on Monday," I corrected her, 2 days after the wedding. "That doesn't matter. It's viral now. People are sending it to Celine, asking if you're her sister, questioning why you weren't at her wedding. You've completely overshadowed her special day." Anger surged within me. Her special day, the one I wasn't invited to. We explained the situation, this was Celine's moment, and you couldn't even give her that. You had to make it all about you. I replied, my voice steady but fierce. "I went to Paris, I took photos I'm proud of. I posted one on my personal Instagram. How is that about Celine? Because of the timing. It was the only weekend I could afford the trip. Did you want me to completely rearrange my life for an event I wasn't invited to?" There was a pause on the line. Then, she responded sternly, "Celine is very upset. Celine excluded me from her wedding without even talking to me. I'm sorry if my public life concerns her, but that's not my issue. This is exactly why we didn't want to invite you," my mother snapped back. "This attitude, this craving for attention. You've always been envious of your sister." "I'm not envious," I shot back, meaning every word. "I've been hurt and dismissed my entire life, treated as if I don't matter. But envy? No, I refuse to apologize for my existence." I hung up before she could respond, my hands trembling. For the first time, I had confronted my mother so boldly, and it felt simultaneously liberating and frightening. Within an hour, Celine called. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. "You sabotaged my wedding," she accused, her voice thick with tears or fury or perhaps both. "I wasn't even in the same country during your wedding," I replied. "You know what I mean. Everyone's buzzing about your ridiculous Paris photos instead of my wedding. I spent 3 months planning everything, and you wrecked it with one attention-seeking post." "Celine, I didn't do anything to you. I just took photos in Paris. That was during my wedding weekend. You scheduled it to pull focus away from me." "Actually, I scheduled it because it was the only weekend I wasn't expected to participate in family events, given I wasn't invited to yours." Mom explained why, she interjected. "No," I cut her off. Mom made excuses. "There's a difference. You wanted me out, and you got your wish. But you don't dictate how I live my life or manage my social media. I barely got any traction on my wedding photos." Celine lamented, clearly in tears. 200 likes. Can you believe it? My wedding photographer's post barely made a splash, yet your ridiculous pretend wedding shoot has gone viral. Do you have any idea how that feels? A small part of me wanted to empathize, but an even bigger part felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I imagine it's akin to being told you're not welcome at your sister's wedding, I whispered. It's like being erased from family gatherings and cherished photos, like constantly being the disappointment who never quite fits in. So yes, Celine, I completely understand how that feels. She hung up abruptly. I found myself on the couch, fixated on my phone, torn between feeling justified and utterly empty. This was what I wanted, right? For them to recognize me, to acknowledge that I exist, to feel some repercussions for how they've treated me. But strangely, it wasn't as gratifying as I anticipated. My phone chimed with a text from Kara. Are you all right? I saw the comments on your Instagram. Your family knows. I replied, yeah, they're upset, but I'm okay. Kara responded, good. You did nothing wrong. Don't forget that. The rest of my Thursday was spent drowning in work emails and trying to ignore the ongoing surge of likes on my Instagram post. It surpassed 20,000. Multiple blogs covered it. 2 magazines reached out, and a wedding planning company wanted to sponsor similar shoots and asked if I'd consider being a brand ambassador. This was unreal. I went to Paris for one stunning moment for myself, and somehow I sparked a social media movement. People started sharing their solo celebration photos with hashtags like #ShineWithoutPermission and #MyOwnNarrative. Then came that unexpected call on Friday afternoon from an unknown number. I almost let it ring, but something compelled me to answer. Is this Isabel? This is Melissa from Bridal Dreams magazine. We'd love to feature your Paris shoot in our next issue and conduct a full interview about the experience. Bridal Dreams magazine, the top bridal publication in the country, was the same one that reportedly sent photographers to capture Celine's wedding. I'm interested, I heard myself saying. What would that entail? As Melissa detailed the opportunity, I realized this was far bigger than I had thought. They wanted a 4-page spread, a professional shoot, and my narrative told in my own voice. They described it as a fresh way to celebrate being your own guest of honor. After we ended the call, I sat there in utter shock, then burst into laughter, not in a cruel way, but from disbelief and irony. Celine spent $750,000 for her wedding to be featured, and here I was, having snagged it with just one Instagram post and a $5,000 trip to Paris. The magazine interview was set for the next week, and meanwhile, my Instagram post was skyrocketing. It climbed to 40,000 likes, then 60,000. Brands began reaching out for sponsorships and partnerships. A travel company wanted to create a solo celebration package based on my journey, and a dress designer wished to collaborate on a line of non-traditional formal wear for women celebrating themselves. I was completely overwhelmed. Here I was, a freelance photographer barely scraping by, suddenly flooded with life-changing opportunities. Yet beyond the money and fame, I felt truly seen. Thousands recognized the significance of what I had done. Meanwhile, my family was in a downward spiral. On Saturday morning, my father rang me. Unlike my mother, he wasn't yelling, he sounded drained. Isabel, can we talk face to face? I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop close to my apartment that afternoon. When I arrived, he was already there, looking older than I remembered. The week's stress was evident on his face. Thank you for meeting with me, he said as I settled into my seat. What did you want to talk about? He sighed, swirling his coffee. Your mother and sister are really upset. I know. They've made that abundantly clear. They believe you purposely tried to sabotage Celine's wedding. And what's your take on it? I inquired. He paused for a long moment, then admitted, I think, we didn't navigate the wedding situation very well. Your mother was concerned about family dynamics and keeping things cordial for Celine's special day. But perhaps we overstepped. Maybe. The words slipped out sharper than intended. We should have included you, he said softly. That's what I wanted to express. We should have found a way to ensure everyone felt included. But you didn't. No, we didn't. For the first time, he looked me in the eye. And I'm sorry for that. I should have defended you, and I failed to do so. It was the first genuine apology I had ever received from anyone in my family, and it should have brought me more satisfaction than it did. I appreciate that, I replied. But Dad, this isn't exclusively about the wedding. It's about years of feeling like I don't matter as much as Celine. The wedding was simply the most blatant example. I know, he said, the pain evident in his expression. Both your mother and I admired Celine's self-assuredness and achievements, and we aimed to uplift her. However, we were oblivious to how much we were neglecting you along the way. You recognized it, I pointed out, but it seemed you didn't think it warranted any change. Instead of arguing, he took out his phone to show me something. It was Celine's Instagram account. Her wedding photos had the comments turned off, and where likes should have numbered in the hundreds, there were only a few. She's devastated, he said. After all that planning and expense, it seems like no one cares. Meanwhile, your photos from Paris are everywhere. She thinks you've overshadowed her moment. I didn't overshadow anything, I replied firmly. I created my own moment. The fact that people resonated with it more than her wedding is not on me. I understand that, logically, I do. He tucked his phone away. But she's my daughter as well, and she's suffering. So am I replied. I've been in pain for years, and no one noticed or cared. Suddenly, it's a big deal because Celine's feelings are hurt. That doesn't seem fair, does it? I stood up. Dad, I appreciate your apology regarding the wedding, but a single apology won't erase decades of being overlooked. I won't apologize for living my life and sharing it just because it upsets Celine. I walked out before he could reply. As I returned to my apartment, the weight of everything settled heavily on my shoulders. This wasn't the straightforward revenge fantasy I might have pictured. It was complex, messy, and hurtful for everyone involved. Yet, I also felt a sense of liberation. For the first time, I wasn't diminishing myself for my family's comfort. I stopped apologizing for occupying space. On Monday morning, I had my interview with Bridal Dreams magazine. Melissa, the journalist, was warm and insightful, probing deeper than surface-level questions. What led you to pursue this shoot? She asked. I wanted to create something beautiful for myself, I replied. I spent so much time waiting for someone to give me the green light to celebrate myself, to be recognized as valuable. This was my way of granting myself that permission. And the timing during your sister's wedding weekend, she inquired. That was the only weekend I could do it, I honestly explained. And it felt symbolically significant. She was having her perfect day with everyone's attention on her. I was crafting my own perfect day without needing anyone's approval. 3 weeks later, the article was published. They showcased several stunning images of Isabel and wrote an engaging interview. The response was both swift and overwhelming. My Instagram followers surged from 2,000 to over 100,000 in just a week. But the most remarkable effect was in my inbox. I received countless letters and messages from women sharing their experiences of feeling overlooked, marginalized, or dismissed by their families. Many had gone on to create their own moments of joy, inspired by my bold move. I read every note, often with tears in my eyes, realizing that my individual act of defiance had transformed into something much greater. A week after the magazine hit the shelves, Celine unexpectedly showed up at my apartment. I hesitated to let her in, but curiosity prevailed. She appeared different, smaller, somehow, and lacking her usual confidence. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside to let her enter. We sat in my cozy living room, and an awkward silence lingered between us. I read the magazine article, she finally admitted. The things you talked about, feeling excluded, not being celebrated. What about it? I responded. I never considered it in that way, she confessed. From my perspective, I was simply living my life, achieving what I had worked for. I didn't realize how that made her feel. She hesitated, seemingly uncomfortable. You didn't realize what? That you felt invisible. That we made you feel that way. I waited, allowing silence to envelop us. I'm not apologizing for my wedding, Celine continued, some of her old defensiveness re-emerging, or for my life. But I'm sorry you felt excluded for so long that you had to go to Paris alone to feel celebrated. Though it wasn't a perfect apology, wrapped in defensiveness, it was still an acknowledgement. Thank you, I responded simply. Are we ever going to be okay? She inquired, referring to our sisterhood. I pondered. I don't know. Maybe. But it would require you to truly see me as an equal, rather than someone existing in your shadow. She nodded slowly. Honestly, your Paris photos demonstrated you were never in my shadow. You made it seem that way by remaining quiet. After she left, I sat in my apartment reflecting on her words. She wasn't entirely incorrect. For years, I had diminished myself, accepting the role of the overlooked daughter because it was easier than fighting. But I was no longer that person. Opportunities continued coming my way. By the end of the month, I had signed a contract with a luxury travel brand to create content for their solo celebration campaign. The income one received exceeded what I had made in the last 6 months combined. A chic hotel chain reached out to me for a potential partnership. Additionally, 3 distinct photography workshops wanted me to conduct sessions focused on crafting viral content through genuine storytelling. My financial landscape underwent a stunning transformation overnight. For the first time as an adult, I was free from the anxiety of meeting my rent. I wasn't juggling the numbers in my head to see if I could buy groceries alongside camera gear in the same week. It struck me as ironic that my family's disconnection inadvertently propelled my career in a way that years of dedication had not accomplished. However, the most rewarding news came from a surprising source. The photographer hired for Celine's wedding contacted me directly. Her name was Catherine, and her message was both professional and direct. I wanted to make my introduction, she wrote. I was contracted to photograph your sister's wedding and supply images for Bridal Dreams magazine's coverage. But after your parachute photo went viral, they decided to scrap the feature on Celine's wedding. They felt the narrative had shifted to solo celebrations, and a traditional 7-figure wedding no longer aligned with their editorial vision. I thought you deserved to know, as it seems your family has been pointing fingers at you for the lack of coverage. The reality is the magazine made a strategic choice based on reader engagement. Your parachute simply resonated more than a typical luxury wedding would. I read her message 3 times, absorbing the implications. Celine hadn't just missed out on social media traction, she lost the magazine feature she probably relied on, likely the reason for my parents justifying the massive expenses. I should have felt victorious, but instead, a complex emotion washed over me. Not exactly guilt, but a recognition of the unintended consequences my single choice had wrought. I never intended to take away Celine's magazine feature, I had just shared a photo I was proud of. Yet good intentions don't alter results. Later that evening, my mom called again. This time, her voice had shifted. It wasn't filled with anger as before, but had a pleading quality. Isabel, Celine is really struggling. This entire situation has impacted her deeply. I truly felt for her. I didn't want my sister to endure hardship. The wedding was meant to be her moment in the spotlight. She had orchestrated everything flawlessly, spent a fortune, and now people were forgetting it all thanks to my Paris photos. Mom, I never intended for my photos to go viral. I only shared something I cherished. But you had to understand, she argued. You're a photographer. You know the power of social media. Posting those images during her wedding had to steal her thunder. I shared them 2 days after the wedding, I reminded her. Even if I had posted them on the same day, I have the right to share my own life on my own profiles. Celine doesn't own an entire weekend. But as her sister, you should have been there to protect her interests, she interjected. We can't flip-flop on this. Either I'm enough of a sister to safeguard her interests, or I'm not important enough to be included in major family events. You can't pick and choose based on convenience. There was silence before she quietly responded, when did you become so unyielding? I'm not unyielding, I'm just done being invisible. After our call ended, I poured a glass of wine and settled on my tiny balcony, watching the Charleston evening unfold. My phone buzzed with notifications on Instagram, brand inquiries, messages from followers. My life had drastically transformed in a mere few weeks, but my relationship with my family had changed forever. I could never revert to my former self, quietly accepting the scraps of attention they were willing to share. That version of Isabel was a thing of the past. The following morning, I received an email from a literary agent who had seen the Bridal Dreams article. She thought my story would make a captivating book, not just about the Paris shoot, but about the broader journey of being overlooked in my own family and finding the courage to celebrate myself regardless. There's a hunger for these stories, she wrote. Women taking back their narratives, refusing to stay small. You have the power to voice that experience. A book? I had never contemplated such a thing, but reflecting on it made me realize the vast number of stories I possessed. Years of feeling invisible, watching Celine bask in accolades while I barely got recognition, the slow realization that I needed to carve my own path to validation. The choice to go to Paris and its aftermath came rushing back. I agreed to a call with the agent, and by the end of the week, we were deep in discussions about a book proposal. The advance she mentioned was more than I had earned over 2 years of photography work. Everything unfolded rapidly, perhaps too swiftly. Yet, I embraced the momentum, making choices that felt authentic, even if they filled me with unease. Just 2 months post my time in Paris, I received an invitation to speak at a women's empowerment conference in Atlanta. The focus was on crafting your own story when others try to erase you from it. To say I was petrified is an understatement. Public speaking had never been in my repertoire, and the thought of addressing a crowd of hundreds left me frozen. But Kara encouraged me, saying, "This is your life's work coming to fruition. It's not about fame or wealth, but about the affirmation that your voice is significant. Seize this chance." The conference took place in a grand hotel ballroom. Backstage, I felt my hands tremble while I listened to the speaker before me conclude. Then, it was my moment. Stepping onto the stage, I scanned the audience and began sharing my story. I recounted my experiences as the overlooked daughter, the pain of the wedding exclusion, and the choice to venture to Paris. I showcased photos, discussed the overwhelming response, narrated the complex aftermath, and when I concluded, the applause erupted like thunder. Women approached me afterward, sharing their own tales of familial exclusion, feelings of invisibility, and their journeys towards self-acceptance. Many were in tears, numerous hugs followed. "You made me feel less alone," one woman mentioned. "I thought I was the only person whose family treated them this way." That night in my hotel room, I pondered my journey. Just 3 months earlier, I had been the sideline sister, hurt and unnoticed. Now, I was a voice that connected with thousands. However, the ache of familial disconnection lingered. Success didn't erase that hurt, it just added layers of complexity. In September, just 4 months after my trip to Paris, the book deal was finalized. My agent secured a generous advance, and the publisher requested the manuscript within a year. I was equally exhilarated and terrified. Writing about my experiences meant facing everything I had long tried to downplay. My parents' reaction to the news was exactly what I anticipated. My mother called, her voice tinged with tension. "You're writing a book about the family. Isabel, that's incredibly intrusive. We deserve privacy." I countered, "I'm sharing my experiences. My story, my perspective. You can't dictate that. But you'll tarnish our image. You'll expose the wedding incident." I replied, "I'm presenting the truth of my life. If that casts you in a negative light, then perhaps you should have treated me better." She abruptly ended the call. Celine's feedback came through a text. "I can't believe you're doing this. Profiting from family drama. This is a new low." I chose not to reply. There was nothing to say that wouldn't ignite another conflict. Yet, the distance from my family, while painful, felt liberating. I was cultivating a life that didn't depend on their validation. I was achieving success on my own terms. In October, 6 months after my Paris adventure, I was invited on a national morning show to discuss the solo celebration movement sparked by my viral post. The segment was titled "Why Women Are Celebrating Themselves," and I was anxious about how the narrative would unfold. Surprisingly, the interview surpassed my expectations. The host was warm and genuinely curious about the psychological facets of family exclusion and self-validation. When she inquired about my sister's wedding, I chose my words carefully. The hurt from the exclusion was profound, but it also brought clarity. I recognized that I had been longing for my family to acknowledge my worth. I finally grasped that I didn't require their approval to celebrate who I am. "And what's your relationship with your family like now?" the host inquired. "Complicated," I admitted. "We're navigating a tough phase. But I'm at peace with that because I'm no longer compromising my well-being for a relationship that was never healthy." After the show aired, my Instagram followers surged past 300,000. New brand partnerships and speaking opportunities flooded in. The momentum was exhilarating. But the real game changer arrived in late October when I got another email from Bridal Dreams magazine. They sought to do a follow-up 6 months after the initial feature. The working title was "The Aftermath: How One Photo Changed Everything." The article would highlight updates on my career, discussions about the book deal, and insights into family dynamics. Here's the twist: they wanted to interview Celine as well. They aimed for both sisters' viewpoints on what transpired. My gut reaction was to decline. Giving Celine a platform felt risky. Yet, my agent saw potential. This could be powerful. She encouraged, "If you believe in your truth, let her voice be heard." The contrast may be enlightening. I agreed, but with stipulations. I wanted to review Celine's interview before it went public and retain the right to address any inaccuracies. The magazine was on board. Just 2 weeks later, they forwarded me Celine's interview transcript. As I read it, emotions surged within me, anger and sadness intertwined. In her narrative, she painted herself as a hapless victim of my jealousy, claiming that her flawless day had been intentionally ruined by a spiteful older sister. According to her, I had always envied her achievements, posting those Paris photos solely to wound her, asserting that my entire trip was nothing but a calculated act of revenge. What stood out the most was her utter lack of accountability. In her account, she held no blame for the exclusion. It was purely my parents' decision, and she just went along with it. The stark absence of empathy in her words was shocking. I took great care in crafting my response. I refrained from launching a direct attack on Celine. Instead, I chose to stick to the facts, the sequence of events, the years spent feeling like an afterthought, the selective invitation list that conspicuously left me out, and the intentional decision to utilize that weekend as a time for self-celebration since I was routinely excluded from family events. "I can't dictate how my sister interprets my actions," I wrote. "But I can express my truth. And my truth is that for 27 years, I felt invisible in my own family. My trip to Paris wasn't revenge, it was about survival. It was about celebrating myself when no one else would." The article exploded when it was released in mid-November. The magazine did a fantastic job of showcasing both sides without overtly siding with anyone, but the flood of reader comments revealed clear public sentiment. Thousands highlighted Celine's lack of self-reflection and her disregard for her part in the situation, along with her relentless dismissal of my feelings. Here was an older sister who got excluded from a key family event yet still managed to find a way to celebrate her life. One comment hit home. The younger sister had a $750K wedding and is upset that someone else is in the spotlight. "Tell me who the real issue is." The article went viral, spreading across social media, featured in podcasts, and analyzed in think pieces about family dynamics and sibling rivalry. Meanwhile, Celine maintained her silence on social platforms. Her Instagram, once filled with meticulously arranged posts showcasing her perfect life, suddenly fell quiet. My parents didn't reach out either. While this silence should have felt like a win, it instead felt like the final break in an already fragile relationship. In December, 8 months after my Paris adventure, I signed the lease for a new apartment. And not just any place, a stunning 2-bedroom residence in a historic neighborhood of Charleston, boasting high ceilings and expansive windows, ideal for setting up a photography studio. Now, thanks to brand deals and my book advance, I could afford it comfortably. Kara helped me move in, and we toasted with champagne on my new balcony overlooking the street. "You did it," she cheered, raising her glass. "You've genuinely crafted an entirely new life." "We did it," I corrected, appreciating her support through every step. "So, what's next?" I mused. "More travel content, the book, all of it, but I also want to empower others to share their narratives, especially women who feel overlooked and need the encouragement to celebrate themselves. I'm thinking of initiating workshops and creating a platform for those voices." Kara beamed. "That's brilliant. You found your purpose." Maybe I had, not just in terms of success or recognition, but in using my experience to help others feel less isolated. The book launched the following June, almost exactly 1 year after my Paris trip. It was titled Uninvited, Celebrating Yourself When Others Count You Out. The cover showcased one of Isabel's stunning photos from Paris, where I appeared in an ivory dress with the Eiffel Tower in the backdrop. The launch party took place at an art gallery in downtown Charleston, attracting over 200 attendees, including friends, colleagues, followers who became friends, and women whose paths intersected with mine through the solo celebration movement. Kara delivered a heartfelt toast that brought me to tears, while my agent emphasized the profound power of authentic storytelling. My family didn't show up. I sent them invitations out of courtesy, not expectations, and their lack of response was telling. The book became an instant hit, climbing bestseller lists in its first week. Reviews lauded its honesty and emotional richness. Women embraced the book in their book clubs, shared quotes on social media, and reached out to express how it helped them navigate their family traumas. However, success didn't come without its challenges. My parents engaged a lawyer, threatening to sue for invading their privacy. Their attorney issued a cease and desist letter, claiming I had defamed them. My publisher's legal team scrutinized the book and found everything I had penned was factually accurate or clearly articulated as my perspective, safeguarded under freedom of speech. The lawsuit threat fizzled out but underscored how distant we had become. They seemed more focused on their reputation than on empathizing with the pain that compelled me to write the book in the first place. Celine, however, opted for a different path. She penned an op-ed for a website detailing her experience of being misrepresented within another's narrative. Though she never used my name, the implications were unmistakable. She cast herself as a victim of my achievements, claiming her privacy had been exploited for profit. The reaction to her piece was immediate and largely lacking in empathy. Many pointed out that she could have attempted to mend things privately, yet she opted for public declarations instead. Furthermore, they highlighted her failure to acknowledge her part in the initial exclusion. By the summer, a full year after the events in Paris, I found myself on the road often for book tours and speaking events. I shared my story at universities, women's conferences, and corporate engagements, focusing on empowerment and authenticity. Each time I presented, I recognized the shared feelings reflected in the audience. So many could relate to the struggle of being overshadowed by family dynamics. Then, in August, I received an unexpected email from Patricia, a family therapist who specialized in sibling relationships and parental favoritism. "I've incorporated your story into several therapy sessions with clients," she stated. "It has helped them see that choosing oneself is not selfish, but rather an act of survival." I'm writing a book on family scapegoating and would love to interview you for a chapter if you're interested. I gladly accepted. The interview was insightful and thorough, diving deep into not only the events but also the reasons behind such family patterns. Patricia elaborated on the concepts of golden child and scapegoat dynamics, explaining how families often assign roles that reinforce themselves. You've broken the mold, she noted. Most scapegoated kids spend their lives seeking approval that won't ever come. You decided on a different path, validating yourself instead of waiting for others to do so. This discussion shifted my perspective. I was more than just the overlooked sister. I was someone who had identified a toxic pattern and made the tough decision to walk away from it. In September, I was invited to a significant conference in New York to speak on women's empowerment and the impact of social media. With an audience exceeding 1,000, I recalled the frightened, invisible girl I had been just 16 months prior, the one who believed her worth depended on others' recognition. I shared my story with those 1,000 faces, showed them my Paris photos, discussed the viral aftermath, and finally declared something I had contemplated for months. Attending Paris wasn't vengeance, it was a personal revolution. A soft revolution that occurs when you stop seeking permission to fully embrace your existence and start granting that permission to yourself. My family wanted me to remain unseen, and for years I obliged them. But in Paris, I stepped into the light, realizing that illuminating my own path meant I didn't need validation from anyone else to shine. The applause was thunderous. After the conference, I wandered through Central Park, reflecting on all that had transformed. My career flourished beyond my wildest dreams, financial stability, professional recognition, and a platform to uplift others. Yet, this came at the cost of my family. Perhaps it was merely acknowledging a loss that had long been there. Later that evening, I got a text from an unknown number. To my surprise, it was from Celine. I watched your speech from New York online. Some of what you said really resonated with me. I've been doing a lot of thinking this past year. I'm in therapy now and working through my own challenges. I'm not ready to talk just yet, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to understand. It wasn't an apology, nor was it reconciliation, but it was recognition. Maybe that would suffice for the moment. I responded, I'm glad you're focusing on yourself. I'm here whenever you're ready to chat. I wasn't sure if she would take me up on it, but I genuinely meant it. I had created a life where her approval and presence were not mandatory, yet a glimmer of hope for healing still lingered within me. No return to old dynamics, but rather a fresh, healthier beginning. Months after the New York conference, the repercussions of my family's decisions became ever more apparent. My parents' social circle in Charleston had read my book, leading many to distance themselves, uncomfortable with the revelations regarding their treatment of me. Their community reputation suffered as the golden family facade crumbled, built atop the erasure of one daughter. Eventually, they retired early and moved to a smaller town where there were no reminders of their past. Unable to confront the judgment from their former neighborhood. Meanwhile, Celine's career had also hit a snag after the wedding incident and the ensuing attention. The marketing firm where she was employed discreetly let her go during a company restructuring, her viral fame now viewed as a liability. Just 8 months into their marriage, Gregory filed for divorce. Overwhelmed by the backlash on social media and frustrated by what she perceived as an obsession with appearances over genuine depth, she decided to temporarily move back in with our parents. This was a real humbling moment for her, especially after always being hailed as the accomplished one. Meanwhile, I found myself on the balcony of my apartment, 2 years after that beautiful Paris sunrise, soaking in the serenity of a Charleston morning. My second book, a guide dedicated to solo celebration and self-empowerment for women reclaiming their stories, was set to be released next month. I had also created a vibrant online community aimed at supporting women dealing with family exclusion, offering the resources and encouragement that I wish I had during my own journey. Kara and I were busy planning our next adventure to Paris, this time driven by joy rather than necessity. The transition from being the overlooked daughter to a woman voicing her own truth had been fraught with challenges, far more intricate than any revenge dream could depict. Yet, as I sipped my coffee and admired the golden hues of the morning sun illuminating the city, I came to a significant realization. I hadn't merely escaped the shadows of neglect. I had truly begun to recognize my own worth, to celebrate myself authentically, and to shine brightly without waiting for anyone's nod of approval. In guiding others towards this same realization, I discovered something far richer than familial acknowledgement. I unearthed a sense of purpose, a supportive community, and above all, I rediscovered myself. Occasionally, the most fulfilling form of revenge isn't about retaliation. Sometimes, it's as simple as refusing to minimize your existence, crafting a life so radiant that those who once sought to diminish you can't help but take notice, realizing far too late what they forfeited when they first failed to recognize your value.